What's up, fight fans? This is Kurt DeVille with Counterpunch Boxing News, and I have some new news concerning Big George Foreman. Big George Foreman has some critiquing for Anthony Joshua. He says that he advises Joshua to avoid Ruiz Jr. rematch for now. He says that Foreman thinks that that's a bad idea, as Joshua could make the same mistakes he did in the last Saturday in his 7th round knockout loss to Ruiz, 33-1 with 22 KOs now at Madison Square Garden. Foreman says it takes as long as a year to come back from a knockout, and he compares it to having a broken leg. Okay? They're going to have to go back to the gym. I think he'll be a greater fighter, Joshua now said Foreman to TMZ Sports. If he goes back and gets his mind together, he's going to be even better. But right now, he better learn to box and he better get a good manager. And I'll do it. Okay, so you got Lennox Lewis wanting to train you and you got George Foreman wanting to manage you. You know, look, I will agree with George Foreman. Let me counterpunch George Foreman. I will agree to the point where if he goes in there without correcting the stuff he did wrong, he will make the same mistakes. If he was knocked out by Joey the Tank, okay? If he was knocked out in sparring, and then it added insult to injury, those were the same things that happened to him in the fight. With the same style of person, the guy was emulating Andy, and then he fought the real Andy, right? An emulated version, and then the true version of Andy Ruiz. A shorter guy throwing punches upward, right? Accustomed to throwing punches upward. And what does he think that and then this is what bothers me about Team Joshua. In the post-conference, they were like, were there any problems? He was like, no. It's pride. But then they were like, hey, well, was it any problems in training camp? Everything. He said, man, training camp was cool. We had an awesome team. It was like, okay, well, if you did nothing wrong and you don't see anything you did wrong, well, why did you lose? There was a reason you got caught with punches like that. And a lot of those punches he didn't see. You can tell he didn't see those punches. He had his guards up in those punches, like I told you guys in the fight study. They went around the guard. So he shouldn't have been that close mid-range to Ruiz anyway, right? So those were definitely things that he did wrong, and they're not really admitting they did wrong. And that's the problem. Because if you sit there and say, oh, hey, we did everything right, I don't know how we lost, well, that's really arrogant at that point, because you are in ignorant. Because if you don't see what you did wrong, you'll never correct what you did wrong. That means it can happen again. So I do agree with George Foreman about that. For him saying stay away from Andy Ruiz, it takes like a year for a knockout. Look, it was a TKO. It wasn't a knockout. It wasn't like Manny Pacquiao. Now, if it would have happened like that, I would agree with George Foreman. I can't agree with him on that one. Because that wasn't one of those, boom, game over. You know what I mean? It wasn't one of those. And they had to pick him off and put him in the gurney and all that shit. No. Put the little sauce on his nose. It wasn't nothing like that. But it was one of the situations where he was hurt. And I guess mentally, maybe he was referring about it mentally. But, but he said a knockout. It was a TKO. The ref stopped it. You know what I'm saying? And he ended the fight on his feet. He didn't end it like on the ground. You know what I mean? So I can't agree with that. But as far as, George Foreman saying, I'll be his manager, I think, look, people still have to understand and people acknowledge that Anthony Joshua is a very wealthy person. And if you're attached to Anthony Joshua in any kind of way, it's very lucrative. Let's just be real. It's people around Joshua that are millionaires. His management team, Eddie, Barry Hearn, the trainers, they all got a piece of this brand, right? This product. And this is it's a huge pot of money surrounding Anthony Joshua. You know what I mean? And people would love to work with him now. Of course, they want to make him better, but then, what's the angle? What's the advantages? The advantages are going to pay you. You know what I mean? It's like if Anthony Joshua reached out to me like, hey, I want to learn certain things. I want to learn how to move, the way a pure boxer would. And I think that would be more his style. He needs a style like a collie, someone that can fight on his back foot. But if you're fighting on your back foot, brother, you're going to have to lose that weight. So the weights, no weights at all. You don't need weights at all for boxing. Calisthenics, sure. Push-ups, yeah. But weights, no. They hinder you down. They make you bulkier, and that goes against the process, people. You can't be fluid. You can't be fluid with with bench pressing 250, 300 pounds and shit like that. No. That does not mean strength, right? That does not mean strength, So especially natural strength, because what your body can naturally produce doesn't have anything to do with what you can pick up and lift repetitively. You know what I'm saying? So, maybe see something smaller, maybe some smaller dumbbell weights or something like 5s or 2 pounds or whatnot. But anyway, back to George. George says some interesting things, and I think what he's also referring to is how he got beat by Ali. Let's look at that. Think about it. People say things and they reference it to their own personal experiences. And George Foreman's experiences of being put down in the 8th round by Muhammad Ali in Zaire, Africa, was a huge upset, people. And people, a lot of people reference the Buster Douglas Tyson, but let's go further back. Ali, Foreman. Foreman was undefeated at the time. Okay, I think he was 40-0 with 33 knockouts, if I can remember correctly. And he was the guy that destroyed the guy that beat Ali. Okay. That's why triangle theories does not work. But what happened to George Foreman? He had to take a layoff. Okay, he had to take a break for a long time to go back in there to regroup himself. That's why he advises Joshua to do the same. It might be some truth to that. He might need to take the rest of the year off. But then again, guys, think about this. It's been 10 months since Joshua had been in the ring, so that might have been the problem. So because he's supposed to he fought in September, then again in April. That was a decent amount of time. Then it got pushed to June. That makes it almost 10 months now. That's almost a year, people, that he's been out of the ring. So yeah, that could have been, that was ring rust. You know what I'm saying? So you got to think about it. Coming in there with a shorter, faster guy, you better not have ring rust. They should have put him in there with a taller guy that's slower, like Brazil. You know what I mean? An easy touch. But, these guys are not about easy touches, which I can respect that. But then again, you have to realize where your fighter at is mentally, physically, and realistically. Does he have to knock the cobwebs off or what? But anyway, George Foreman, had that to say about George Foreman. You guys tell me what you think about George managing Anthony Joshua. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been Counterpunch. Peace.